Hello Planeswalkers! Andrew here, to welcome you to the second Livaan video, this time in red and black. Livaan, Cultist of Tiamat, says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, target creature gains power equal to that spell's mana value. Their background for this deck is Cultist of the Absolute, so they're a double Cultist. Cultist of the Absolute gives commander creatures you own +3/+3 and flying, Death Touch, and Ward pay 3 life. Drawback is that you must sacrifice a creature on each of your upkeeps. While the Gruul list was all about dragons and making them bigger, this deck focuses on generating tokens to feed into Cultist of the Absolute and ways of making Livaan even bigger and stronger, so it's a Voltron deck with a small army attached. First, let's go over the other ways we have of buffing Livaan. Nim Deathmantle gives +2/+2 and Intimidate, and whenever a non-token creature goes to your grave from the field, you may pay 4 to return that creature to the battlefield equipped with the Deathmantle. This not only makes Livaan larger and makes him harder to block, but it can also synergize with Cultist of the Absolute if you sacrifice a non-token creature to it. You can even sacrifice Livaan to that ability and pay 4 to immediately bring Livaan back to the field. Wand of Orcus gives the equipped creature Death Touch as long as it's attacking, and when it attacks, it also gives your zombies Death Touch for the turn. Whenever the creature hits a player, you make that many 2/2 zombies. Death Touch makes your opponents less likely to block Livaan, and when Livaan connects, you create a bunch of zombies to chuck into Cultists. Lightning Greaves is a classic protection piece, costing 2 to play and 0 to equip, granting haste and shroud. Perfect for protecting Livaan from your enemies, but terrible if you actually want to target them with something yourself. Forebear's Blade gives +3/+0, vigilance, and trample, and whenever a equipped creature dies, you move the blade to a target creature you control. This is another one that works nicely with Cultist's sack effect, but instead of saving the sacked creature, it just moves to another creature. This is one that you may be inclined to attach to your fodder creatures rather than Livaan in some situations. Cauldron Complete is an indestructible artifact equipment, and grants +5/+5, first strike, trample, indestructible, haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a creature, you exile that creature. This is an insane buff to Livaan, making them very difficult to deal with in general, but it is a very expensive card to play. Tainted Strike gives +1/+0 and Infect for the turn, which can turn Livaan into a one-shot out of nowhere if they end up not being blocked and have at least 9 power, which is easier with all the Voltron pieces in the deck. Mirror Shield gives amazing protection, granting +0/+2 and Hexproof, and destroying any creature with Death Touch that blocks or becomes blocked by the equipped creature. Trailblazer's Boots is a simple yet effective evasion piece, granting non-basic land walk. With all the non-basic lands running around in EDH, this is essentially an unblockable effect. Makes Livaan completely unblockable. Now for token generation, with which to fuel Cultist's sack effect. Necrotic Hex costs 6 and a black and makes each player sacrifice 6 creatures. Then you create 6 tapped 2/2 zombies. This works as a board wipe in many circumstances and gives you a whole 6 bodies to sacrifice. Goblin Offensive costs X1 red and creates X1/1 goblins, so really as many goblins as you can afford. Pashalik Mons hits any target for 1 whenever it or another goblin you control dies, and you can pay 3 and a red to sack a goblin and make 2/2 goblins. As you can tell, the best ways of creating a ton of bodies in Rakdos are going to be zombies and goblins. Crowded Crypt acts as a mana rock that gets a corpse counter whenever one of your creatures dies. You can also pay 4 black and sacrifice the crypt to create a 2/2 black decayed zombie token for each corpse counter that was on the crypt. Krenko, 10th Street Kingpin, gets a +1/+1 counter whenever it attacks. Then you make a 1/1 goblin for each of its power. That doesn't make any sense. You make 1/1 goblins equal to its power. Goblin Rabblemaster makes your other goblins attack each turn of Fable. On the start of combat on your turn, you make a 1/1 Hasty Goblin, and whenever Rabblemaster attacks, it gets +1/+0 for the turn for each other attacking goblin. We've only got a few talking points for support today, starting with Savage Alliance. It's an instant for 2 and a red with Escalate 1, which means you must pay 1 for each mode chosen beyond the first. You can choose between giving one player's board Trample for the turn, hitting a creature for 2, or dealing 1 damage to each creature target opponent controls. This can help you swing in for lethal if you have a large enough board, shock a creature, and or wipe someone's board of all of their small tokens. Fury Charm is another instant with multiple modes, costing 1 and a red and letting you choose one between destroying an artifact, giving a creature +1/+1 and trample for the turn, and removing 2 time counters from a suspended card. That last effect really doesn't matter. The first one can act as a situational artifact removal, and the second one can help Livaan get damage through to an opponent. Captive Audience is an enchantment for 5 black-red that enters under the control of an opponent of your choice. At the start of their upkeep, they must choose one that hasn't been chosen between making their life total 4, discarding their hand, and letting each opponent create 5 2/2 zombies. Of course, your opponent is very likely to choose the second and third modes before choosing the first, since the first mode makes them an easy mark. Of course, the last mode gives you yet more creatures to sacrifice to Cultist. Ramp in this deck is pretty simple. It mostly consists of mana rocks like Talisman of Indulgence, which taps for a colorless, or you can have it hit you for 1 to add a black or a red. Thrawn Dynamo, which taps for 3 colorless. Gilded Lotus, which taps for 3 mana of any one color. And Skyclave Relic, which is indestructible, taps for any color, and can be kicked to make 2 tapped copies of it. And that's the gist of the deck. It's a little of going wide and a little of going tall. Livaan is charging into battle with an army of small zombies and goblins. Quite literally that meme that's Lord Farquaad saying, "Some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make." I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like and maybe subscribe. It helps us out a lot. And as always, have a wonderful day, everyone.